Hey guys, welcome to day one of our 21-day Pilates challenge. Today we're going to start off with the very basics so that you can set a solid foundation for your Pilates practice. So we're going to start off in all fours and we're just going to do some cat-cow to warm up the spine. So bring your palms onto your mat. You want your wrists to be directly under your shoulders, and then your knees are going to be right under your hips and they're going to be separated hip distance apart. And I like to have the tops of my feet flat onto the mat, but you can also tuck your toes under if that's more comfortable for you. We're going to take a breath in, and as we inhale, I want you to think about flattening your spine or flattening your back. So round your tailbone down just a little bit so your back is flat. So you don't want to have that arch in the low back, but we want to have a nice flat back. So you're pulling your belly button in and engaging your core a little bit there. So as you exhale, you're going to tilt the pelvis and your tailbone up towards the ceiling and your bottom ribs down towards the floor. And you can even lift your chin so that you get a little bit more of that curve into the spine. And then as we take the inhale, you're going to send your tailbone down and you're going to draw your belly button up towards the middle of your spine. So you're actually engaging the core when you round your spine. And then we're going to exhale. Send the ribs down towards the floor. So now we're warming up the spine and also warming up the core. So inhale, pull your belly button up, round your spine. Exhale, curve your spine. We're going to do two more like that. This will be the last one. Perfect. And then we're going to come back to, we call it a neutral spine. So for our neutral spine, we're going to round the tailbone down just a little bit, and we want to have the back nice and flat. So we're right here, and you're going to push through your palms, through your fingertips, so that you're not collapsing your shoulder blades. We're going to push through and have a nice flat back. And now we're going to shift our weight into our knees and our right palm. So we're going to start there. Take a breath in, and then when you exhale, you're going to reach your left fingertips forward. So this is an oblique exercise as well, because your obliques have to work to stabilize you. So your obliques are your side abdominals. So they're working opposites. So when we lift our right arm off of the mat, our left obliques become more engaged. So let's do that a couple times. We're going to lift the left, inhale it down, and then the right. So just alternating. And each time you lift one arm or the other, you should feel the opposite obliques, so the opposite side abs engage. And don't go into your relaxed spine. We want to have a nice flat back. So we're going to lift and lower, lift and lower. Let's do one more on each side. Place your hands down, and we're just going to give the wrist a little pause. So we'll send the hips back, and you can go into a child's pose. And just remember, this is your flow. So whatever feels good for you, you can do. So if you need to give a little twist, you can in between. And then let's come back onto all fours. And now we're going to try it with opposite legs. So we call these, again, contralateral exercises. So you're lifting one side, but the opposite side is working. So we're going to go into the left leg first. And I like to tuck my toes under for this one. So we're going to stretch the left leg back. And I'm going to point the toe, so I'm lengthening my leg and bringing my heel up to hip height. So instead of down here, I'm going to bring it up to hip height. I'm going to try to balance the hips, balance the shoulders, and then bring it down, and let's switch to the other side. So you stretch the right leg, point your toe, lift your heel up to hip height, and then bring it back down. Now let's take the left. Inhale, pull it in, and remember, we want that nice flat back, so we're not going to arch the back. Keep it nice and flat. Perfect. Let's do one more on each side. And then last one on the left. And then we'll bring the legs down, send the hips back for that child's pose. Give your wrist a little break. All right, now let's try to put it together. So we're going to come back onto all fours. And remember, we want the knees hip distance apart, palms hip shoulder distance apart, back nice and flat. We don't want that arch, nice and flat. Pull your belly button in. And we're going to add on by reaching the opposite arm and opposite leg. So let's start with the left arm stretching and the right leg stretching back. So we're going to reach and hold it here. So if you can hold for 3, 2, 1, and then relax it down. And then let's try on the other side. Reach the right arm forward, reach the left leg back, hold for 3, 2, 1, and then bring it in. Let's try it again on the left. Reach and hold. Bring your heel up to hip height if you can. And then bring it in. Let's go to the other side. Stretch the left leg, stretch the right arm. And then bring it in. We're going to send the hips back for that stretch. And then let's try to add on to that movement a little bit here. Last exercise in our sequence. We're going to stretch the right arm and the left leg. Hold it here, and we're going to lower and lift. So we tap and lift. Remember, keep that back flat. Last 3 and 2. Last 1. Bring it in. Let's take it to the other side. Stretch the right leg. Reach the left arm and lower and lift. Last 4, 3, 2 more, and last 1. Bring it in. Last time, I'm going to separate the knees a little bit wider. Sit back into my child's pose. Reach my arms forward. Nice long stretch, taking breaths in and out. And then I'm going to come back up to seated. So I'm going to bring my legs around up in front. So we have our spine warmed up a bit and our core warmed up a little bit. We're just going to come to the seated position, and we're going to work on what we call articulating the spine. So articulating the spine, think of how your spine looks. It's a bunch of vertebrae stacked, and we're going to move them one by one. So let's plant our feet nice and flat onto the floor. Bring your hands right behind your thighs. Remember, we want to keep the shoulders relaxed. So shoulders are going to be relaxed. Elbows can be kind of out wide. Take a breath in to just kind of pull into the thighs and sit up tall with the lengthened spine. So we're thinking of maybe a magnet pulling the crown of your head straight up to the ceiling. So this is your lengthened spine. And then we're going to go into like a half articulation of the spine, holding onto the backs of the thighs. We're going to exhale. You're going to start to curve your pelvis. So that's your low spine first. And then your middle spine starts to curve. Relax the shoulders. And if you can go all the way back where your arms are stretched, but your feet are still planted onto the floor, draw your belly in. And then we're going to pull back up into a lengthened spine. And we're going to do 3 of those. So we round. You can see my belly's pulling in. My shoulders are relaxed. And I come back up. 2 more. And then this will be our last one. We try here like that. Perfect. Come all the way back up. Take a pause here. Let's take the arms and stretch them out long. Your palms are going to face each other. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take a breath in. And then as we exhale, we're going to round the spine. And then come back up to center. 2 more, round the spine. And then back up to center. Last one. Perfect. Relax your arms. Take a little pause there. So you can feel the spine moving one vertebrae at a time or articulating. So now let's add on to it a little bit. We're going to hold that curve of the spine at the bottom and then add on a little bit more core work. So reach your arms forward, round back. You're going to hold it here. Draw your belly in, relax your shoulders down from the ears, and we're going to lift the right arm up to the ceiling and then lower it down. Now the left. So exhale, lift, inhale, lower, exhale, lift, inhale, lower. One more on this side. Last one to the left. And then we'll round up to seated. Good, relax your arms. Now let's try to add on with a little bit of rotation. So we'll reach the arms forward. We're going to round it back and hold it here. For your rotation, you're going to keep your left arm reaching forward. Your right arm is going to rotate open and your gaze is going to follow that arm as you rotate. So now to the left and to the right, and you're keeping your abs in as you twist. So this is your obliques again, doing the twisting. Let's do one more to the right. And then last one to the left. And then we'll round up to seated. We're here, we'll stretch the legs. And let's take an inhale to reach up overhead. We're going to exhale to fold down to our toes. And I'm going to flex my ankles so my toes are pointing up to the ceiling. And then restack the spine through the center. Let your head be the last thing to reach the top. And this is an articulation of the spine as well, because when we restack, we're moving the spine one vertebrae at a time. We'll do one more. We'll restack, coming back up to center. Relax your shoulders down and back. And then let's take the feet wide. We're still going to have the flex. We're going to do something from the classical Pilates, and we're going to do something called a saw. So you're going to have your arms open out to a T. You want to have a nice flat back to start. Press your thighs down into the mat and then flex your ankles so your toes point up to the ceiling. Now we're going to start with the rotation first. So we're rotating to the left, and they're going to reach your right fingertips towards those left toes. We're going to come back up diagonally first and then rotate back to the center. Now we're going to go over to the other side. Reach, back up, rotate center, and left. Perfect. Let's take it over to the right. And the left. And we'll do one more over to this right side. And then we'll come back up to center, relax the arms, bring the feet back together. And we're just going to come to the edge of our mat with our feet. Make sure you have enough space behind you where your head is supported on your mat. Reach the arms forward, and we're just going to round the spine and allow one vertebrae to touch at a time until your head is the last thing to reach the mat. And then let's bend our knees and have our feet flat onto the floor. We're going to do some bridging. So for bridging, we're going to start off with just some pelvic tilts. And this is going to help you to learn how to isolate your pelvic movement away from other movements of the spine. So find these two little hip bones here. We're going to call this the inner hip. So we might say inner hip distance. You're going to take your fingers and place it right on those two little hip bones. Now, right now your spine is neutral on the mat, so your low back is kind of lifted. That's the natural curvature of your spine. There's a little curve in your lumbar spine. So we're going to close that gap between your low spine and the mat without lifting your hips off of the mat. So this is called a pelvic tilt. And you're just going to tilt your pelvis, and you can see my hips didn't lift off of the mat, but I used my abs to pull my low spine flat against the mat. So if I lift my arms, you can see it's nice and flat. And then if I go back to a neutral, there's that gap reappearing. So let's try that a couple times. Round. Inhale back to neutral. So when you go and take class in person, they might say, go into your pelvic tilt, imprint the spine. This is exactly what they're talking about when they say that. All right, you got that? Perfect. So now that you have that in place, let's practice going into an articulating bridge. So we're going to be doing what? Lifting the spine up one vertebrae at a time. So we're going to start with our pelvic tilt without lifting the hips. And now we're going to start with lifting the lowest point of the spine. So we start with the tailbone, and then we start to lift each vertebrae of the spine one at a time until we come up to the tips of our shoulders. And then we have a nice perfect diagonal line from the knee to the hip to the shoulder. And then we're going to go down in reverse. So we're going to let the upper spine touch first, and then the middle, and then the low back, and then we go back to our neutral spine here. So let's do that again. Imprint, scooping up, one vertebrae at a time, and then melting down, one vertebrae at a time. We're going to do two more. And this will be our last one. You can see how my spine is moving like sometimes we say like a string of pearls. And each pearl represents your vertebrae moving. Perfect. That's beautiful articulating bridging. So now let's add on to our articulating bridge. We're going to add something at the top. So we're going to start with the pelvic tilt. We're going to scoop ourselves up all the way up. Once we reach the top, let's activate the glutes a little more. We're going to do some pulses. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause. Melt our spine all the way down. Good. Perfect. So now let's go into another type of bridge you might hear in class, and that's your hinge bridging. So for hinge bridge, now the hips are just going to lift up to the ceiling in a flat back motion. So we're just going to take the hips straight up to the ceiling, and then we're going to inhale, lower them down. So when we exhale, we lift. Inhale, and we're just going to tap our tailbone. So we're not going to come into a full resting position, just a tap and lift. Tap and lift. Two more. Tap and lift. Last one. Tap and lift. Perfect. Lower the hips all the way down. And now let's engage the core a little bit more. So our arms were keeping us stable. So now we're going to reach the arms up to the ceiling, and we're going to have to use our core now to keep us stable as we lift up into our bridge. Let's see if it feels different. You exhale to lift. Inhale, lower. Let's do 3, 2, last one. Good. Lower your hips all the way down. Relax your arms. Now we're going to add on to it at the top. And then if you don't feel stable once we come into this exercise, you can bring your arms back down to the mat. But let's try it with our arms lifted. So we're going to lift the hips up to the ceiling. Hips are going to be in a nice neutral position. So don't let them drop left or right. And we're going to lift the right leg up and then the left. And we're going to keep the hips high when we do this. Lift and lift. Keep your hips up. 6, 5, 4, 3 more. Last 2, last 1. Feet are down, hips are lowered, and then once your hips come in, you can just bring your knees into your chest. Give yourself a little circle in either direction. You can stretch your legs up to the ceiling, give your hamstrings a little stretch. And then let's relax the legs down, and let's do some core work here. So now, well, it's all core work, but we're going to do a little bit more now. So we're going to go into some ab series here. So let's start off with bringing the legs into, we call it tabletop. So for tabletop, you want to make sure your knees are right over the hips, and then your feet, you don't want them up here or down here, which is more popular. You want them to be at the same height. So your ankles and knees are in the same height. That's why we call it tabletop, because you're making a table with your shins. Now, sometimes if you find that maybe you're not here just yet, you can cross your ankles, and that'll give you a little bit more support, and you can kind of switch in halfway so that your right ankle will support for half and then your left ankle will support for half. But let's start off with tabletop. And then I'm going to try to imprint my spine into the mat as well. We're going to start off with our single leg stretch. So we're going to take our hands and place them behind our head. Now, when you lift up into a chest lift, and you are welcome to keep your head down if you're not quite ready for chest lift yet. But when you lift into a chest lift, we're not going to lift our chin up to the ceiling. We're going to curl our head, neck, and chest, and I should be able to see my thighs through the whole exercise. So don't think of your hands as a support for your head. Think of your hands just there to guide you towards your thighs. And then I'm not going to let my belly flare up. I'm going to pull it in. Pointing my toes away, I'm going to stretch the right leg and then the left. This is your single leg stretch. Exhale and switch. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, last one. Bring it in and relax your head all the way down. You can relax your arms. Bring your knees into your chest in between. Now we're going to do double leg stretch. So for double leg stretch, we're going to come into the same position, legs starting tabletop, interlace the fingers behind the head, pull the abs in, and then we're going to stretch both legs, draw it back in, stretch, and pull. For 6 and 5, last 4 and 3, 2 more, last one. Perfect. Go ahead and relax your head down, relax your feet down, give yourself a little pause. And then we're going to go into some scissor. So for scissor, we're going to take both legs up to the ceiling now. So no more tabletop. We're going to curl back up through the center, hold it here, and our straight legs, toes are going to be pointed. So think about lengthening from the hip all the way to the toes. We're going to lower the right leg down, bring it back up, and then the left. This is your scissor. Perfect. We've got 8, 7, and 6. Last 5, 4, 3, 2 more, last one. And then bring your legs in, take a little pause. We're going to do one more exercise here, and then we'll do something else called 100. So we'll start off with our last exercise in the ab series before we add in 100. We're going to do a corkscrew. We're going to do it in kind of 2 ways. So we're going to take the knees back into tabletop, and then we're just going to drop the knees a couple inches over to the right. So just bringing the knees past the hips slightly. And then we're going to stretch both legs, bring them back into the center, bend your knees. Let's go to the other side, over to the left, stretch, up to the middle, bend your knees. Good, so this is using those obliques again. Now the further down you lower your legs, the more challenging it is. But we want to keep the stability in our pelvis. So make sure you have that control as well. Perfect. Let's do one more to each side. Last one over to the left. And then we'll bend our knees, relax our feet down, and we're going to press the feet into the mat. And then from here, we're going to reach both arms up to the ceiling with your palms facing away. And we're going to curl the head, neck, and chest up through the center. You can also keep your head down. Bring your palms to hover right over the mat. And we're going to do little pumps of the arms here. And you can see the hinge is coming from my shoulder. And I'm going to breathe in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Out 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we can add on to it a little bit. You can bring your right leg into tabletop. And then you can float your left leg. Or you can keep the feet down onto the floor. You can also keep the head down on the floor and float the legs up. We're here for 100 breaths, so keep that in mind. If you're a little more advanced, you can also take the legs out to a 45 or up to the ceiling. Almost done here. Make sure you're breathing though. Last 10. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Relax all the way down. Let's take both knees over to the right, and you can turn your head over to the left. And we'll come back to the center. Let's switch over to the other side. And then we'll come back to the center where we can make some little circles with the hips over to the left. And then some circles over to the right. And then we'll come back to the center. And then let's roll over to our right hip. And then once we're on our right hip, you can bring your right hand right onto your back of your head. And we want to have our hips stacked. We're going to keep a little gap in between your bottom rib and the hip. So there's a little space between the hip and your bottom rib. And you want to have a little gap there so that your spine is in a nice straight alignment rather than letting your hip sink down. So you can see I'm pushing my top hip slightly forward. We're going to bring the feet together. We're going to have our left palm kind of acting as almost like a kickstand to keep us stable. And then from here, we're just going to open into a clam and then close. So we're going to do a little bit of side body single leg series here for 5 and 4. Last 3. 2 more. Last 1. Perfect. Bring it all together. Take the legs out just a little bit further. We're going to lift that top leg in and pull it slightly in towards the chest, and then we're going to stretch it out. Lift, lower, draw it in. Press it out. Lift, lower, draw it in. 4 more. Out, up, down, and in. Last 3. And 2 more. And then last 1. Pull it in. Relax your legs down. We're going to do one more exercise here on this side. We're going to take that left leg out. Hold it here. We're going to make little circles forward. Point your toe. Like you're drawing circles about the size of a dinner plate forward. And you're keeping your hips stable. So you can see I'm not rocking forward or back. 3, 2, 1. We're going to reverse. Little circles back. So someone asked about ankle weights. This would be how you would make your leg circles a little bit more challenging if you had that weight at the end of your ankle. Last 1. Good. Pull it in. Give your hip a little tap. We're going to press ourselves up into position for our mermaid. So for mermaid, we're going to have this front leg crossed and then this left leg back. You can also sit crisscross if this is not quite comfortable for your hips. We're going to take the right hand down onto the mat, left arm out to a T, and you're just going to reach the left arm up and over. This is your lateral bend. So think about stretching the fingertips away from your shoulder, lengthening the spine, and then bending it laterally. Good. One more. We're going to bend, open the chest. You can close the chest, and then we'll bring it up and over, and we'll go into our counter stretch. Perfect. Let's take it over to the other side. We're going to come all the way down. We'll come up and do our mermaid on the other side after we do our side lying series. So same thing on this side. Remember, you want that little gap in between the hip and the bottom rib, and we're going to start off with our clam. And you can have this top hand as your kickstand, and we're just going to open and close. So this is squeezing the glute. Open and close. Open and close. You can do these with a band if you want to add a little extra challenge on when you try these at home. Last 3, 2 more, and last 1. Good. Go ahead and close. Stretch the legs out just a little bit further, and we're going to go into that combination movement. So we draw the leg in, stretch it out, lift, and lower. In, out, lift, and lower. Good. Try to keep that pelvis stable and that little gap in between as you go into these movements. Very good. We'll do 2 more. Last 1. Don't forget about your breathing as you go into these movements. And then go ahead and relax the leg down, and we'll finish up with those circles on this side. So we're going to stretch the leg out, and we're going to start with little circles forward. So these are hip circles. They come from the hip. That's why you feel it in that glute. So wherever it's starting to burn, that's the muscle you're using to do this movement. So think about that when you think about functional movement. And then we're going to reverse. Try to keep the hips stable. Last 3, 2, 1. Bring it in. Rub that hip out. And then let's come up into position for our lateral bend. So now we're going to switch, and you'll have this left leg in front and the right leg back. Left hand down onto the mat. And we're going to reach the arm up and over and open. So this is that mermaid. You can sit crisscross if that's more comfortable, if this is not comfortable for your hips. We'll reach it up and over, open the chest, close, and then come back out to center. Place your left hand down, reach your left arm up and over. Perfect. And then come back to the center. Let's bring both hands down. Bring the knees back. You're going to have your toes tucked under, and we're going to work on that plank movement. So belly is drawn in, toes tucked under. You're just going to lift your knees to hover off the floor. For 3, 2, 1, lower your knees down. Good, let's do that again. Press into the mat so you're not collapsing your shoulder blades. Take a breath in, lift your knees to hover. 3, 2, 1. Good. Now let's add on to it. So we're going to do something called a plank to a pike. So we're going to lift the knees to hover. Step your right foot back and then your left. Take your hips up to the ceiling. That's your pike. Hips forward. That's your plank. Back up into your pike. Exhale to your plank. 2 more. Last one. Perfect. Drop your knees down. Send your hips back. And then we'll come forward. We're going to lay all the way down flat onto our mat. Palms will be right at our shoulders. We're going to have the tops of our feet flat onto the floor, but we're going to activate the glutes by really squeezing the glutes and kind of lifting, almost lifting the thighs off of your mat. Take a breath in. We're going to exhale, lift up into our swan. So you can pause here, or you can go all the way up into full extension of the spine. But something to keep in mind here is that your shoulders aren't into your ears, but that you press them down and back. So if you're not able to do that comfortably all the way up here, then you can just stay into a modified position. And then we'll come down. Let's do 2 more. Exhale, press up. Inhale down. And the next one, we're going to add a little bit of rotation of the upper spine. So we're going to lift up into that position. Shoulders are down and back. We're just going to turn the head to the right. Sweep the head down and around to the left. Come back to the center. Turn the head to the left. Sweep the head down and around to the right. Come back to center. And then bend the elbows. Perfect. Tuck your toes under. Let's press back into that child's pose as we take the right arm through to the other side. Give yourself a rotation. And then back to the center. We're going to switch it over to the left into a rotation. And then back to the center. Let's bring our right leg forward and then our left. And we'll sit cross leg. And we'll kind of finish up how we started off. So let's go ahead and sit cross leg comfortably. Bring our palms right onto your knees or onto your shins. Take a breath in to sit up into that lengthened spine. So remember the magnet pulling the crown of your head up to the ceiling. And then as you exhale, we're going to round the spine. Inhale, come back up into a lengthened spine. We'll take the right hand down, left arm up. We're going to reach it up and over. And we're going to switch the right hand in front and just reach the left hand back for a twist. Let's come back to the center. We'll do the same on the other side. Reach the right hand up and over. And then take it back for a twist on the other side. And then we'll come back to the center. You're going to take another breath in as you round the spine. Exhale, come back up. Very good. So you are all done day 1 of our 21-day challenge. That was just our introduction to Pilates. So you'll be ready for tomorrow, which is day 2. Well, we'll work on expanding on what we just learned today. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.